Do you spend time telling others how they should relate to the topic called racism without considering your own relationship to the topic? My name is Heather Feather. I am the owner of Rare Bird Medicine, and today's topic is Eracism. It is interesting for a person like me that is deeply not a YOLO believer. I don't believe you live one lifetime. It mathematically doesn't make sense to me that you get anywhere from 0 to 100 years. And if there was ever such a thing called heaven, those beings that only lived for 10 days or those beings that only lived for 2 weeks, for all of eternality, only have 1 week to 2 weeks to talk about with all beings in heaven for all time. Like, it doesn't make sense for a lot of different reasons to me. I do see a tremendous burden of proof of evidence around the construct called reincarnation. There have been scientific studies done on this. There are many authors that have written about it. And for me, I'm not a YOLOer. I don't believe you live only one life. I do believe that every being that you look at has had many, many lifetimes. And I do believe that the universe is just, and we get to be all of the cultures. We get to be all of the gender identifications. We get to be all of the sexual identifications. We get to be all of the variety in the garden of life. However, because I am this skin tone, I've had many people throughout my life feel that they need to come and educate me around my relationship to the topic called racism. However, I've often had them do this in deeply racist ways while they aren't considering their relationship to the topic. If we, as a planet, want to erase racism from the globe, it's a tricky thing to do with 8.2 billion people, first of all, especially with variant levels of IQ. And that being said, the only thing that you are stewarding truly is yourself. You may be rearing children to become into adulthood, but you're stewarding you every breath that you take. And the question is, do you have a relationship with racism? Is there any race you've decided to hate? You've decided to have prejudice, to judge them before you get to know them, to understand who it is you're looking at. The reality is that although we have had many people with my skin tone that have been racist and that have caused systemic issues, not all people with this skin tone have been racist. We had the North fighting the South. We had indigent and impoverished Caucasian people that didn't have slaves. It's like, if we're going to talk about history and we're going to talk about cultures and races, then let's talk about all of the history. Let's talk about it. Let's put it out there. I'm a great believer in knowing what has occurred, because in order for history to not repeat itself, we need to pay attention to what's been happening. But Heather Feather, in this iteration of incarnation, has not only never enslaved a being, she's actively worked throughout her life to offer freedom in relationship and sovereignty in relationship, where I'm not dictating to another how they're supposed to behave with me. I'm not dictating in a friendship how you're supposed to show up. I'm simply choosing what I want to move towards and away from. And I can say that my mother, she always felt as if inside of herself, she was something different than white. And part of why this happened is that after my father drowned in the Brazos River and left her to raise 3 kids on her own, she went to a psychic and she asked why this would occur for her in her tremendous grief of now needing to nurture the nature of 3 beings while also honoring and respecting that she's taking care of herself, but to have lost the love of her life as soon as she created a family. And she was told that in her last life, she was one of the slaves that was present, and she was the father in an experience with my father. He was the mother, and we had just been given freedom after slavery. And it was an extremely toxic time because although freedom may have been present, it wasn't present. There was tremendous prejudice, tremendous systemic issues of terrible crimes against people of color. And she died and left my father to raise the 3 of us in that lifetime. In this lifetime, she was kind of balancing the books energetically to understand. They both chose as souls to understand the shoes they've had each other walk in. And she knew that to be a truth. And so she always felt in her own being, she would tell me sometimes, like, I'm black on the inside, And a lot of people will take that and, oh, how dare her, blah, 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 because they hold more of a YOLO belief system. You live one life and you better stay in your lane culturally. I don't think that humans own culture. I think that Creator owns culture. Creator created culture, Creator created us. And I think it's an ego grab to want to possess one culture and be like, this is what I am for all time, you know? And to each their own. I'm not here to correct whatever perception you hold. I'm speaking from my perception because that's the tongue that's talking. From my perception, we live many, many lifetimes. You are not one culture. You are all of the cultures, which is why it's important to be reverent to the many cultures that there are. I have a lot of reverence for the Muslim faith tradition. I see a lot of devotion to God in that faith tradition, where you pray 5 times, you pray over the food you eat, you constantly hold conscious awareness of divinity. And I've seen a lot of racism against those that are connected to the Muslim faith tradition in this incarnation of my life, without getting to know what it means to be Muslim. I was blessed when I worked for Greenpeace to work with a woman named 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭 that showed me why she does all the things she does as a Muslim, why she honors the nutrients given to her in the food she eats because divinity gave it to her. And I was humbled and in awe by the grace of her being and the way she chooses to walk through her life in relationship to this thing called divinity. And so I do not think my own relationship with divinity is superior to anyone else's. Because I believe I live many lifetimes, I believe I get to be all the philosophies as well, which makes it a little tricky when we feel like we need to go and tell others what they need to do in relationship to a topic we know nothing about that soul and the truth of the relationship they hold to it. I once worked for a person that was very devoted to giving light to people of color in our community. And she was having a conversation with a person that I dearly love around this topic and around a publication that we were giving. And I stood up and wanted to interject and add something. And I was told that it's my white privilege that makes me think I can be a part of the conversation. It's actually my humanity that makes me think I can be a part of a conversation. It has nothing to do with my race. And I didn't really appreciate the egregious racism that was welcome to give to me just because I don't have as much melanin in my skin. Like, it's okay pretty much culturally, because many egregious crimes have been committed at the hands of those that hold the skin tone, to just universally be prejudiced and judge all beings of the skin tone before you get to know them and just decide they're the people that need to do the work. Newsflash. Every race on planet Earth has those that are racist within their race and within their culture that need to do their work around understanding that we are all one. We all have bones. We all bleed red blood. We all have minds. We all have hearts. There's no reason to treat someone different just because their skin tone is different. It's ignorant to do such a thing. I think we can universally agree, if we're going to be in a more evolved standpoint of exercising the love that we be into the realm. However, I find it common, just like I find it common to vilify and have misandry be a part of a culture against men, it is common to allow any type of XYZ racism against this color of skin. And the reality is that all labels at Earth School, there are those that are doing the shadow expression of that label, and there are those that are doing the light expression of that label. There are people with this skin tone that have universally, throughout all of their incarnations, they've come in as medicine people, as healers, as those that contribute to freedom and liberation. And there are those with the skin tone that have been imprisoners and violent and terrible in the way that they've treated others. But the reality is all skin tones have had that. If you're speaking to a person, do you know if they were one of the people that was enslaved to build the pyramids in ancient Egypt? If you live many lifetimes, are you so certain that the soul that you're talking to has not been not only enslaved and imprisoned by another culture, but has been enslaved and imprisoned in a very toxic and violent relationship, or perhaps has been imprisoned by somebody that was a torturer and a serial killer? Like, when you speak to another soul, you do not know them like you think you do. You do not know the shoes that they walk in, although you may get on your high horse and ride around them as if, I know who you are. Do you? You know what I mean? Do you? What I have found that there are many people at Earth School that Heather Feather has made false judgments of and has had to take a knee and humble herself to recognize they are not all the things that I thought that they might be. You know, and so we make up stories of others and assume that we have spoken the truth while we are talking on another soul that holds shoes that we do not walk in ourselves. Heather often says, mind your paper. The question I ask you this day is, are you a racist no matter what your skin tone is? And what do you intend to do to be more loving to the all? Amun.